For example, under Joseph Stalin's rule of Russia, the government determined every aspect of Russian culture. If Stalin didn't like a certain writer or artist, he would have them killed or imprisoned. Many religious groups were also targeted. Stalin went as far as to ban the Orthodox Church. In this society, socialist realism was very prevalent. Socialist realism was the style of art that glorified the working class, giving them a sense of pride and making them feel like what they were doing was admirable. In this style, there was hardly a range of emotion. The art helped further Stalin's cult of personality by depicting large and happy men that mirrored Stalin's philosophy of a utopia. Despite Stalin's agenda, his take on socialist realism would not have been supported by either Marx or Engels. In fact, the two would have been disgusted by Stalin's attempt to brainwash his people.
Petrushka the Parushkila Trauskila Tudi.
Vonitai?
No.
Jo?
Da.
Godistai Bontiten, Bociento, Valitin Toko, Stalin, Moto Hor Orwell, 1984, Gato Nito Wine, Skontain Politai.
Proski tu, proski mi. Si? Da?
Da, yes.
Si.
Si,
Contru.
Conti Manitai.
Et tru o et pal?
Apa,
Epa?
apa, apa, apa.
Epa no et Russian bird.
Don,
Don.
Tony Sai. Don?
Pero no comprendo lo que tú estás tratando de decirme.
Tony San, Tony Titai, Mofi, Tony Patu, Samatitao, Tulinda Capitalism?
Stupid capitalist! Stupid capitalist! In the name of Stalin!
Why? For these reasons, many people debate on whether or not Russia was accurately described as being socialist during the Cold War, as many of the philosophies of Stalin directly opposed the political theories of Marx and Engels. Socialism has been a tough topic in the world to discuss, especially in the United States. The mere mention of the word socialism was enough to scare little American housewives and their families for weeks, causing them to lie in bed at night dreaming of nuclear war. But what was all the fuss about? According to the philosophies of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, the authors of the Communist Manifesto, the epitome of social happiness must be obtained through organized collectivism. It seems odd to view a philosophy dedicated to obtaining universal happiness as a negative thing. The United States, however, is a country based on the individual, and socialist thought directly opposes the view of the inherently capitalist country.
The United States, I'll actually give you a different answer than you usually get. The United States is a very different country from Western Europe for a number of reasons. One is that if you go back to the Pilgrims and ask yourself, who came here? You will suddenly realize something which is very simple. Some people, I study personality and biology, and there's some people who take risks and there are other people who don't take risks. And the people who came from Europe to North America, and especially to the United States, were by and large risk takers. And I can describe that not just by telling you to go to look at Plymouth, Massachusetts, the model of, these little boats, the Mayflower. I mean, I wouldn't cross Lake Winnipesaukee in the Mayflower, let alone the Atlantic. I mean, taking a risk like that. I'll tell you the story of how my grandfather got to the United States from Russia. Jews in Russia were not allowed to be outside of their own ghetto, which was called the shtetl. And my grandfather decided he was going to, like other kids, going to get away. He went to a non-Jewish farmer and rented his horse and wagon for 3 days. I think it took that far to get from Vitebsk to Poland. And Vitebsk is the city in Russia. And he, midnight one night, or middle of the night, he went to that farmer's place and climbed into the back of his wagon, the horse and wagon. The farmer filled up the wagon with hay, put ducks on top of the wagon, and headed for the Polish border. And every time the police stopped them, which was frequently the driver of the wagon, who was non-Jewish, said he was just going to the next village to sell hay, the ducks. Go ahead, and that's how he got out. Well, that kind of risk is a little different than you're taking, let's say, the bus from here to Boston, or from Boston to New York, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is really, or to Montreal for that matter. This was dangerous stuff. It meant that if you look theoretically at that, the people who came to America were risk takers. And one of the things about America was that it had a lot of land, a lot of potential resources, and some people around called, we now call them Native Americans, Cherokees or whatever, Mohawk. And the point was to kick them off the land, put them on reservations, and take over this land and develop it. Well, this meant that the initiative of private individuals was essential, because the government couldn't do that. All the government could do was say, yeah, we would send the army in to help kick the Indians off their land, and call them Native Americans instead of Cherokee or whatever. But basically, because of the kind of people and the kind of situation, activity by individuals was what was necessary, and it made money. And in particular, socialism arises in the late 19th century in particular, but only you get communist countries in the 20th century after the Russian Revolution. And that, after the Second World War, the United States was the most powerful country in the world of those people opposed to communists. Well, that means that if you're opposed to communists, you don't want anything that smells of that. So a lot of people just confuse the word socialist and communist, but the whole idea of the government running businesses is something that has become just anathema to people because it subverts their idea of what the Constitution is. Of course, if you say that any government regulation of business is very bad, you'll find some people who go so far to say you can't have anything at all. And then I say, well, what about the VA administration hospitals? You know, we do have some things where the government runs health care, socialized medicine. But the word socialized medicine scares people horribly, and they say, well, then you won't be able to choose your own doctor, or and it's just because it's knee-jerk reaction. In fact, if you had a single-payer health service or backup paying system, as you do in, say, France, people choose their own doctors, and it's not like that. There's a certain exaggeration. But clearly, the reasons behind the use of language have to do with our culture, and that has to do with our history. And you didn't expect this long of an answer, but if you don't mind, the final exam of my lecture is next Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon.